I'm your host, Blake, and today we're talking about something that can completely change the way you learn English: the importance of daily English practice. Many learners think they need to study for hours to improve, but the truth is, small, consistent practice every day can be much more powerful. It's like exercising a muscle. If you go to the gym once a month, you won't see much progress. But if you go every day, even for a short time, your body gets stronger. The same happens with your brain when you practice English daily. Your memory improves, your speaking becomes more natural, and you start to think in English without translating everything in your head. Let's think about this for a moment. Imagine you listen to English for just 15 minutes every morning. Maybe a short podcast like this one, or a video on YouTube. Then, you try to repeat some of the sentences, or write a short summary of what you heard. That small habit can help you notice new words, pronunciation, and expressions that native speakers use. Over time, your ears start to recognize English sounds more easily, and you begin to understand conversations without trying so hard. It's all about creating small habits that fit into your daily life. You don't need to wait for the perfect time or perfect materials. The best time to practice is always now. Another reason daily practice is so important is because of memory. When you study once a week, you forget most of what you learned before the next lesson. But if you practice a little every day, you keep the words and grammar fresh in your mind. The repetition helps you remember longer and more naturally. It's like watering a plant. If you water it once a week, it might survive. But if you water it every day, it grows strong and healthy. So, think of your English as a plant. It needs attention and care every day. Now, I know that many learners are busy. Maybe you work full-time, or you study at university, or you take care of your family. But even if you have just 10 minutes a day, that can make a difference. For example, you can listen to an English podcast while you're cooking or commuting. You can read a short article while drinking your morning coffee. You can even talk to yourself in English for a few minutes when you're getting ready in the morning. The goal is not to study for long hours, but to stay connected to English every single day. Let's talk about consistency, because that's the real secret. Many people feel excited at the beginning. They study hard for a week, but then they stop. The problem is, language learning doesn't happen in a week. It happens over time. Daily practice keeps your motivation alive and your progress steady. Even if you make small progress, it still counts. Remember, fluency doesn't come from studying once in a while. It comes from showing up every day. Even when you don't feel like it, it's about creating a routine that becomes part of your lifestyle, not just a goal for a few months. Here's a simple way to stay consistent. Make English part of something you already do. If you check social media every day, follow English pages. If you like music, listen to English songs and read the lyrics. If you enjoy movies, watch them with English subtitles. This way, you don't have to find extra time. You just replace part of your regular routine with something in English. Over time, this habit will make your language learning effortless and enjoyable. I also want to mention one more thing. Daily practice helps you build confidence. The more you use English, the less afraid you feel of making mistakes. You start to realize that communication is more important than perfection. Every day you speak, listen, read, or write in English, you become more comfortable expressing yourself. It's not about being perfect. It's about progress and courage. You'll notice that after a few weeks of daily practice, you start to think in English faster, speak more smoothly, and understand more without translating in your head. Now, if you're wondering what kind of daily activities you can try, let's go through a few practical ideas. You can start with listening activities. podcasts, YouTube videos, or audiobooks in English. Listening helps you understand real-life pronunciation and rhythm. Next, try speaking out loud. You don't need a partner every time. You can describe what you're doing, talk about your day, or read a paragraph aloud. This will train your mouth and your brain to work together in English. Then, spend a few minutes writing, maybe a short diary, a message to a friend, or a list of goals in English. Writing helps you organize your thoughts and remember new vocabulary. Finally, don't forget reading. Even reading a few paragraphs from a story or a news article can help you see how sentences are built and used naturally. Some learners ask, "What if I miss a day?" That's okay. Everyone has busy days. The important thing is to come back the next day. Don't feel guilty or give up because you missed one day. Learning English is a journey, not a race. The more you enjoy it, the more you'll want to continue. The secret is to make English a natural part of your daily life, not something you feel forced to do, but something that brings you joy and connection. And remember, progress doesn't always feel fast. Sometimes you might think, "I'm not improving," but you are. Even on days when it feels slow, your brain is still working. It's building new connections and making the language more automatic. When you keep practicing daily, these small improvements start to add up, and suddenly you'll notice how far you've come. You might watch a movie and understand most of it, or have a real conversation without fear. That's the power of daily practice. It builds your confidence step by step. Many successful English learners follow a simple pattern. They don't study too hard one day and then stop for a week. They just do something every day. It could be listening, reading, writing, or speaking, but they stay active. This keeps their English alive. You can think of it like a fire. If you keep feeding it with small pieces of wood, it stays bright. But if you stop for too long, the fire goes out, and you need to start again. Your English is the same way. Daily practice keeps it burning bright. Now, let's talk about motivation, because that's another big part of daily practice. It's not always easy to stay motivated, especially when progress feels slow. But if you have a clear reason for learning English, maybe for travel, work, or meeting new people, it becomes easier to stay consistent. You can also make your learning fun. Choose topics you enjoy. Watch shows you love in English. Talk about your hobbies, or listen to songs that inspire you. When you enjoy the process, you'll want to practice every day. Let me share something important. You don't need to be perfect to practice daily. You don't need to understand every word or grammar rule. The goal is communication. Every time you use English, you're improving. So even if you make mistakes, it's part of the learning process. In fact, making mistakes is how you learn. Think of babies. They make many mistakes when learning to speak, but they don't stop. They keep going until they can speak naturally. That's exactly how language learning works for everyone. Daily English practice also helps you connect with others. When you use English every day, even in small ways, you open doors to new friendships and cultures. You can join online communities, talk with language partners, or leave comments in English on videos or posts. The more you use the language, the more comfortable you become, and the more you start to see English as a living part of your life, not just something you study in a book. Let's take a simple example. Imagine you wake up in the morning and describe your day in English. You might say, "I'm brushing my teeth," "I'm making breakfast," "I'm leaving for work." These small sentences help your brain stay active in English. Then during lunch, you could read an English news article. In the evening, you might watch a short English video. Altogether, these activities might take only 30 minutes, but they build your skills faster than one long study session once a week. When you practice English daily, You also improve your listening skills naturally. You begin to understand different accents, speeds, and tones. You notice how native speakers link words together and use stress in sentences. These are things that you can't learn only from textbooks. You learn them by listening often, every single day. Over time, your ears become trained to hear English sounds clearly, and your pronunciation improves because you start to mimic what you hear. Now, another key benefit of daily practice is that it reduces your fear of speaking. Many learners feel nervous when they have to speak English. They worry about grammar, vocabulary, or pronunciation. But when you use English every day, speaking starts to feel normal. You stop overthinking, and you start communicating more naturally. Even a few minutes of speaking daily can make a big difference in how confident you feel. The goal is to keep using the language regularly so it stays active in your mind. You might also notice that daily practice helps you think in English faster. At first, you might translate from your native language, but over time, your brain begins to switch automatically. You start forming sentences directly in English, and that's when you know you're becoming fluent. This only happens through constant daily use. It's like driving a car. At the beginning, you think about every move, but after practicing every day, it becomes automatic. When you make English a part of your daily life, you stop seeing it as something difficult or stressful. It becomes something you enjoy doing, just like listening to your favorite music or checking your social media. The key is to make practice feel light and natural. For example, if you like sports, read about your favorite players in English. If you enjoy cooking, watch English recipe videos. If you love movies, start watching interviews with actors in English. This way, learning becomes part of your interests. You're not forcing yourself to study. You're simply living your hobbies in English. That's what real fluency is about. One of the best parts about daily English practice is how it builds momentum. When you practice every day, you start to notice improvement more quickly. You understand more, remember more words, and feel more confident when speaking. Each small moment of practice adds up. At first, it might not seem like a big change, but after a few weeks or months, you'll look back and realize how much better your English has become. You might even surprise yourself when you understand a whole video or have a full conversation without translating. That's the power of small, daily effort. Now let's talk about the mindset you need for daily English practice. Many learners think they must be perfect before they can speak or write, but that's not true. Language learning is about progress, not perfection. You don't need to know every grammar rule or use difficult vocabulary. The most important thing is to communicate. If you make mistakes, that's okay. Mistakes mean you are trying, and trying means you are learning. So when you practice daily, focus on expressing yourself, not on being perfect. Fluency grows from using the language freely, not from avoiding errors. You can also make daily English practice more enjoyable by changing your environment. Try to surround yourself with English as much as possible. You can change the language on your phone or computer to English. You can label objects in your room with their English names, like mirror, window, or desk. You can listen to English music while you work or clean. Even these small changes make a big difference, because they help your brain get used to thinking in English all day. Immersion doesn't only happen in English-speaking countries. It can happen right where you are, if you create it. Let's talk about one common mistake that many learners make. They think that they need a long study session to improve. But long sessions once in a while don't help as much as short daily ones. Imagine you study for 4 hours on Sunday and then do nothing for the rest of the week. Your brain will forget most of what you learned by Thursday. But if you study for just 20 or 30 minutes every day, your brain will keep the information fresh. This is because learning works best with repetition and consistency. It's like watering a plant a little every day instead of giving it too much water once a week. Another helpful strategy for daily practice is to combine activities. For example, you can listen and read at the same time. You can read along with a podcast transcript or subtitles. This helps you connect the sounds and spelling of words, improving both your listening and reading skills. After that, you can try speaking about what you learned, even if it's just for 2 minutes. You can summarize the podcast, give your opinion, or repeat interesting sentences. This kind of active learning helps you use English more naturally instead of just understanding it passively. I also want to mention how powerful it is to track your progress. Keeping a small journal of your daily English activities can motivate you. You can write down what you practiced each day. Maybe listen to an English podcast, read one article, or watched a YouTube video. You don't need to write a lot, just a few notes. When you look back after a month, you'll see how consistent you've been, and that will inspire you to keep going. It's a great feeling to realize that you've practiced English every day for 30 days in a row. That sense of achievement keeps you moving forward. Now, let's discuss one of the biggest benefits of daily English practice. It helps you develop automaticity. That means your brain starts processing English quickly and naturally without thinking too much. At the beginning, you might need time to form sentences, but with daily exposure, you'll start reacting in English automatically. You'll understand questions faster and answer without hesitation. This automatic response is what makes fluent speakers sound natural, and the only way to build it is through daily repetition. If you're looking for a structure to follow, here's a simple daily plan. Spend 10 minutes listening, 10 minutes speaking, 10 minutes reading, and 10 minutes writing. That's just 40 minutes total, but if you do it daily, you'll see amazing results. You can adjust the time depending on your schedule. Some days it might be only 15 minutes, some days an hour. What matters most is that you don't skip. Even a little English each day is better than none. You can also try using English in real-life situations. For example, if you're shopping online, read the product descriptions in English. If you're searching for information, try typing your question in English on Google. If you're writing a to-do list, write it in English. These small moments count as practice. They help you use English as a tool for everyday life, which is exactly what fluent speakers do. Many learners also find that having a study buddy helps them stay consistent. You can find a friend or join an online community where you can share your progress and practice speaking together. Even if you only talk for 10 minutes a day, it can make a huge difference. Having someone to learn with keeps you motivated and makes learning more fun. You can correct each other, share resources, and encourage each other when motivation drops. Speaking of motivation, it's important to understand that it will not always stay high. Some days you'll feel excited, and other days you won't feel like studying at all. That's normal. The key is to build discipline, not just rely on motivation. Discipline means doing it even when you don't feel like it. Once you make English a daily habit, it becomes easier to stay consistent, just like brushing your teeth or checking your phone. It becomes part of your routine. Another helpful idea is to mix old and new materials. Sometimes learners always chase new lessons or new words, but reviewing what you already know is just as important. When you practice daily, spend some time reviewing older vocabulary, phrases, or grammar points. This helps move the information from short-term to long-term memory. You'll start to use words more naturally without having to stop and think. Review is one of the most powerful tools for daily practice. Also, make sure to practice with different types of English. Listen to British English one day, American English the next. Watch different kinds of shows, maybe a movie, a TED Talk, a vlog, or a news report. This variety helps you understand different accents, tones, and vocabulary. The more exposure you get, the easier it becomes to understand any kind of English speaker. Variety keeps learning interesting and helps you adapt to real-world conversations. If you ever feel bored with your daily routine, change it up. Try new activities, new apps, or new topics. You can learn English through games, quizzes, or interactive platforms. You can even create small challenges for yourself, like learning 5 new words every day or recording yourself speaking for 2 minutes. These small goals give you something clear to focus on and make your practice more exciting. Remember, your goal is not just to study English, but to live with English. That means making it part of your daily environment and thoughts. You can even think in English during your daily life. For example, when walking to work, describe what you see in English. When planning your day, think in English sentences like I will go to the gym after work, or I need to buy vegetables for dinner. Thinking in English regularly is a powerful habit that improves fluency naturally. Another advantage of daily practice is how it reduces your fear of forgetting. Many learners worry that if they stop practicing, they'll forget everything. But when you make English part of your daily routine, it becomes something you always remember because you're constantly using it. Your brain keeps the information active, and you won't lose what you've learned. It's the same as keeping a skill alive. If you use it daily, it stays sharp. Let's also talk about listening and pronunciation. Listening to English every day helps you understand how native speakers really talk. It exposes you to natural speed, connected speech, and real-life expressions. When you listen daily, you start to notice pronunciation patterns, like how words connect or how intonation changes meaning. This also helps your speaking because you can imitate those sounds. Even shadowing exercises, where you repeat what you hear at the same time, can train your mouth and ears to sound more natural. Writing daily is another excellent way to improve. You don't need to write essays. You can write short paragraphs, social media posts, or journal entries in English. The act of writing helps you remember vocabulary and improve your grammar naturally. It also gives you time to think about sentence structure and practice expressing ideas clearly. Over time, your written English will become more fluent and confident. Daily reading also builds your vocabulary. Reading exposes you to new words in context, which helps you remember them better. Start with short and simple texts, and then move to longer ones as your level improves. You can read news articles, blogs, or short stories. Even reading for 10 minutes a day makes a big difference, because it expands your word knowledge and shows you how words are used naturally in sentences. Now, here's something interesting. Daily practice also helps with your listening to speaking connection. Many learners understand a lot when listening, but struggle to speak. That's because understanding and producing language are 2 different skills. By practicing every day, you strengthen both skills together. For example, after listening to something, try to repeat what you heard or summarize it in your own words. This simple habit connects listening and speaking, helping you become more fluent. It's also important to celebrate your progress. When you reach small goals, like finishing a book, completing a 30-day challenge, or holding your first full English conversation, take time to be proud of yourself. These small victories keep you motivated to continue. Learning a language is not easy, but every little step counts. You should feel proud for every day you practice. Over time, daily English practice changes how you see the language. It becomes part of your identity. You stop saying, "I'm learning English," and start saying, "I use English." That shift in mindset is powerful. It means English is no longer just something you study, it's something you live and express yourself with. It's a bridge to new opportunities, friendships, and experiences. And when you stay consistent for months, you start noticing how natural English feels. You start understanding movies without subtitles, responding faster in conversations, and feeling confident when speaking. All of this is built from daily practice. One day, you'll realize that what once felt hard now feels easy. And that's because you built it slowly, step by step, with consistency and patience. When you keep practicing English daily, something amazing begins to happen. You start to think less about learning and more about living in English. It becomes part of your daily rhythm, just like eating, sleeping, or checking your messages. You stop counting the minutes you spend studying because it becomes something natural. You might catch yourself humming a song in English or thinking about what you'll say in English before a meeting. That's when you know English is becoming a part of you, not just something outside that you're trying to reach. A lot of learners ask, how can I make daily practice easier to keep up? The answer is to make it enjoyable and realistic. Don't try to do too much at once. Start small and grow slowly. For example, commit to 10 minutes a day for the first week. That's it. Once you're comfortable with that, increase it to 15 or 20 minutes. The secret is to start with something you can actually do every single day without stress. When your practice feels manageable, you'll stick to it longer. It's better to study for 10 minutes daily than 2 hours once a week. Another helpful idea is to create what I like to call English moments. These are small windows of time in your day where you interact with English naturally. Maybe it's when you're making breakfast, you listen to an English podcast. When you're walking to school or work, you repeat new phrases in your head. When you're scrolling online, you read comments in English instead of your native language. These moments add up. They make sure that English doesn't feel like a separate task, but part of your lifestyle. One of the best tools for daily practice is journaling. Writing even a few sentences every day helps you reflect and use the language creatively. For example, before going to bed, write a short entry about your day. You can say, "Today I went to the market and met an old friend. We talked about our plans for next week." These simple sentences are powerful because they connect English with your real life. When English becomes a way to express your personal experiences, it becomes more meaningful and easier to remember. Listening is another area where daily practice makes a huge difference. Listening daily trains your brain to understand natural pronunciation, rhythm, and tone. At first, you might need subtitles or transcripts, but as you listen more often, your ears start to adapt. You begin to understand more without help. Try to listen to different types of English: formal, informal, fast, slow, American, British, or even Australian. Exposure to different accents helps you become a flexible listener. You'll no longer panic when you hear new voices or unfamiliar accents. Instead, your brain will adjust automatically because it's been trained through daily listening. Let's also talk about the role of speaking. Many learners feel shy about speaking English, especially when they're not confident. But the truth is, confidence comes from daily speaking practice. Even if you don't have a partner, you can still speak to yourself. Describe what you're doing. Talk about your plans, your feelings, or something interesting you read. The more you speak, the more comfortable your mouth and brain become with forming English sentences. Over time, speaking becomes less scary and more natural. You'll start noticing that you speak faster, with fewer pauses, and with better pronunciation. Daily reading is another excellent habit. Reading every day helps you learn new words in context and improves your grammar without studying rules directly. You can start with short articles, stories, or even social media posts in English. Choose topics you enjoy, so reading feels fun, not like homework. When you find a new word, try to guess its meaning from the sentence before checking the dictionary. This helps you think in English and strengthens your vocabulary memory. Later, you can try using those new words in your writing or speaking practice. One of the most powerful things about daily practice is how it builds your long-term memory. The brain loves repetition. The more you repeat something, the deeper it sticks. If you learn a new phrase today and review it tomorrow, your brain keeps it a little longer. If you use it again next week, it becomes permanent. That's why daily exposure matters so much. Every time you use English, even in small ways, you're telling your brain, this is important. Remember it. With time, English phrases and patterns start coming out naturally, without you even trying. To keep your motivation strong, it helps to set clear, achievable goals. Instead of saying, I want to be fluent, try saying, I will listen to 10 minutes of English every day for the next month, or I will learn 5 new words a day. Small goals are easier to measure and more motivating. You can check your progress weekly and reward yourself when you succeed. Maybe after a week of daily practice, you treat yourself to your favorite snack or watch a movie in English. Rewards keep your learning journey positive and enjoyable. Another trick is to make your environment support your English goals. Put sticky notes with English words around your house. Change your phone or laptop language to English. Follow English-speaking influencers online. Join online groups where people talk about topics you like, but in English. These small changes make your surroundings full of English and keep your brain engaged even when you're not actively studying. Let's also talk about using technology for daily practice. There are so many great apps and tools that make English learning fun. You can use language learning apps to review vocabulary, watch YouTube videos for listening, or use social media to connect with other learners. The key is not to just scroll, but to interact. Leave comments in English, ask questions, and express your opinions. This active use of English online counts as real practice and builds your confidence to communicate. For many learners, one big challenge is time. But the truth is, everyone can find time for daily English practice if they plan it right. Think of all the small moments in your day, when you're brushing your teeth, waiting for a bus, cooking, or doing chores. You can turn these moments into mini English lessons. For example, while cooking, you can name the ingredients in English or describe what you're doing. I'm cutting the onions. I'm boiling the rice. These short, simple sentences are real speaking practice. They train your brain to use English spontaneously, which is the heart of fluency. Another useful idea is to combine English with your other daily activities. For instance, if you go jogging, listen to an English podcast. If you're driving, play an English audiobook. If you like watching series, choose one in English and watch a little every day. The goal is to make English something you do while living your normal life, not something that interrupts it. When English blends naturally into your daily routine, you'll find yourself learning without even realizing it. Let's talk about emotional connection too. When you connect emotionally with what you're learning, it becomes easier to remember. Choose content that makes you feel something. Stories, songs, or videos that make you laugh, think, or even cry. When your emotions are involved, your brain remembers better. This is another reason why daily practice matters. It keeps your emotional connection to English strong. You start to feel the language, not just study it. Now, I want to talk about one more important part: patience. Learning English takes time. Daily practice doesn't give results overnight, but it guarantees results over time. You might not see progress in 1 week, but after 3 months of daily effort, you'll notice big changes. Your listening will be sharper, your vocabulary richer, your speech smoother. The progress might be quiet, but it's powerful. Patience and consistency are the real secrets to fluency. Sometimes you might feel stuck. Maybe you've been practicing every day, but it seems like you're not improving. That's completely normal. Learning is not a straight line. There are times when progress is fast and times when it feels slow. But even when it feels slow, your brain is still learning. It's processing, connecting, and preparing for a big jump forward. So when you feel stuck, don't stop. Keep going. The breakthrough will come. Daily English practice also builds discipline, and discipline brings results not only in language learning, but in life. When you train yourself to do something every day, you build strength, focus, and persistence. You learn that success comes from consistency, not from luck. English becomes not only a language you're learning, but also a habit that teaches you patience and confidence. Let's talk about community, because practicing daily can be easier and more fun when you're not alone. Join online groups, chat communities, or language exchange programs. When you connect with other learners, you get motivation, inspiration, and accountability. You can share your struggles, celebrate progress, and learn from others' experiences. The more you engage with people who share your goal, the more you'll stay inspired to keep your daily routine alive. Another tip that helps is to review your progress regularly. Every few weeks, look back at what you've learned. Try recording yourself speaking, then listen to an older recording. You'll notice how much smoother your speech has become. Or read a text you found difficult a month ago. You'll probably understand it more easily now. This reflection reminds you that your daily efforts are paying off, even when you don't always see it. If you want to push your English even further, start using it to think and dream. Before sleeping, imagine your next day in English. Think of the sentences you'll need. For example, if you're planning to meet someone, imagine the conversation in English. This mental practice is just as powerful as real practice. It helps your brain stay active in English mode and prepares you for real-life communication. You can also practice by teaching others. Even if you're not a teacher, explaining something in English, like a movie plot, a recipe, or a news story, to a friend or to yourself, helps you understand it deeply. Teaching forces your brain to organize thoughts clearly, which strengthens your fluency. Plus, it gives you confidence to use English actively, not just passively. Another reason daily practice is so effective is because it helps you build habits. When something becomes a habit, you don't need willpower to do it. It becomes automatic. You don't need to push yourself to brush your teeth every morning. You just do it. English can become the same. Once you build the habit, you won't have to remind yourself. You'll simply live with it naturally every day. And that's the beautiful part of daily English practice. It turns learning into living. It removes the pressure, the fear, and the confusion. You no longer worry about grammar rules or big exams. You focus on using English in real life little by little until it becomes effortless. Every word you learn, every sentence you speak, and every sound you listen to takes you closer to fluency. It's not about perfection. It's about persistence. When you practice English every day, you start to notice patterns in the language that you wouldn't see otherwise. For example, you begin to understand how words change depending on the situation, how certain phrases are used in casual conversation versus formal writing, and how native speakers shorten or link words in speech. These patterns make English feel less like a set of rules and more like a living language you can interact with. Over time, this familiarity with patterns helps you speak and understand faster and more naturally. Another benefit of daily practice is that it trains your brain to handle English in different situations. When you only study occasionally, you may only learn textbook English, which is rarely how people speak in real life. But when you expose yourself to English every day, through podcasts, videos, conversations, or reading, you encounter real-life expressions, slang, and idioms. This exposure helps you adapt to real conversations, whether at work, school, or traveling abroad. You start to recognize expressions instantly and know how to respond without hesitation. Daily English practice also builds a sense of confidence that is hard to achieve with irregular study. When you practice regularly, you know that you are improving, even if it's just a little bit each day. That feeling of progress encourages you to take more risks in speaking, trying new words, and experimenting with sentence structures. You start to trust your ability to communicate, and this confidence makes a huge difference in conversations. You'll notice that the more you practice, the less afraid you are of making mistakes, because you know mistakes are part of learning. Let's talk about the role of repetition. Repetition is one of the most important parts of daily practice. When you repeat words, phrases, or sentences, your brain stores them in long-term memory. You don't need to memorize everything perfectly in one session. Instead, use short, repeated exposure every day. For example, you might learn 5 new words today and review them tomorrow. The next day you use them in a sentence. By the end of the week, these words feel natural, and you can use them automatically in conversations. Repetition builds familiarity, and familiarity builds fluency. Another useful method is shadowing. Shadowing means listening to English and speaking at the same time, repeating what you hear as closely as possible. This technique trains your ears and mouth to work together. It improves pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation. Even if you don't do it perfectly at first, doing it a few minutes every day will make a noticeable difference. It helps you sound more natural and prepares you to speak confidently in real-life conversations. Daily practice doesn't always have to be serious or structured. You can include fun activities that keep you engaged. For example, play word games in English, watch funny videos, or read jokes and memes. These enjoyable activities make learning feel effortless and keep your brain constantly exposed to English. The more fun you have, the more likely you are to continue practicing every day. When learning is enjoyable, it stops feeling like a chore and it becomes a lifestyle. It's also important to mix listening, speaking, reading, and writing in your daily routine. Each skill supports the others. Listening helps your brain recognize sounds and patterns. Speaking trains your ability to produce sentences quickly. Reading exposes you to grammar and vocabulary in context. Writing helps you organize your thoughts and use new words actively. By practicing all 4 skills daily, you create a balanced approach that builds fluency faster than focusing on only one skill. Another advantage of daily practice is that it prepares you for real-life English use. For instance, if you travel or work in an English-speaking environment, you'll be ready to understand different accents, fast speech, and local expressions. You won't feel lost or overwhelmed because your brain has been exposed to English every day. Daily practice creates a mental readiness that one-time lessons or occasional study cannot achieve. It makes English feel like a familiar tool rather than a challenge. You can also use technology to make daily practice more effective. Apps for vocabulary, listening exercises, interactive games, and online communities all make it easier to stay consistent. You can schedule reminders on your phone to practice at the same time every day. You can set short goals, like learning 5 new words or listening to a 10-minute podcast. Technology can help you stay accountable and make practice more structured without feeling stressful. Let's talk about speaking practice in more detail. You don't always need a conversation partner to speak daily. You can narrate your actions in English, describe your surroundings, or talk about your thoughts out loud. For example, I am making coffee. I am reading an article about travel. Simple sentences like these are powerful because they connect English to your daily life. Over time, your speech becomes more fluid and forming sentences feels automatic. You'll notice that when you do get the chance to speak with someone else, it's much easier. Daily practice also helps with listening comprehension in real time. Many learners can understand English slowly or when reading subtitles, but daily listening practice trains your brain to process English at natural speed. You'll begin to pick up words and phrases without pausing or translating. Your understanding becomes faster, and you start to follow conversations more easily. This skill is essential for fluency because real-life English is rarely slow or simplified. Daily practice also helps with listening comprehension in real time. Many learners can understand English slowly or when reading subtitles, but daily listening practice trains your brain to process English at natural speed. You'll begin to pick up words and phrases without pausing or translating. Your understanding becomes faster, and you start to follow conversations more easily. This skill is essential for fluency because real-life English is rarely slow or simplified. Another helpful tip is to keep a small vocabulary notebook or use a digital tool to record new words and phrases. Every day, write down a few words you've learned and try to use them in sentences. This simple habit ensures that new vocabulary stays active in your mind. Over time, you'll notice that you can recall words quickly in speaking and writing, which is a key sign of fluency. Daily practice also encourages self-reflection. When you practice regularly, you begin to notice your mistakes and strengths. You might realize that you struggle with certain sounds, sentence structures, or vocabulary areas. By identifying these challenges, you can focus on improving them in your daily routine. This awareness is crucial for steady progress because it prevents you from repeating the same errors over and over. Consistency builds habit, and habit builds results. Even if some days you only practice for a few minutes, it still matters. The key is to never skip days consecutively. Missing one day is okay, but the important thing is to return the next day. Your brain needs daily exposure to build connections and retain information. Over time, these small, consistent efforts result in significant improvement. You'll look back and realize how far you've come, and it will feel natural to keep going. In addition to listening, speaking, reading, and writing, daily practice can also include watching English media with subtitles. This method is highly effective because it combines visual and auditory learning. You see the words and hear the pronunciation simultaneously. Later, you can try watching without subtitles to see how much you understand. Even just a few minutes a day of this kind of practice will improve your comprehension, vocabulary, and confidence. Another great strategy is to set mini challenges for yourself. For example, try to use 5 new words in conversation every day, or record yourself speaking about a topic for 2 minutes and listen to it later. These small challenges create motivation and help you stay accountable to your daily practice. Over time, these small efforts accumulate, and you notice real progress in fluency and understanding. It's important to make practice social whenever possible. Talking to other learners or native speakers reinforces your skills. Even short daily conversations, like chatting in a group, sending voice messages, or commenting on posts, can provide meaningful practice. Social interaction adds real-life context to your learning, helping you use English naturally. Rather than just memorizing words or sentences, daily practice also strengthens your brain's ability to switch between languages. If you regularly expose yourself to English while thinking in your native language, your brain gradually becomes more flexible. You begin to switch between languages more quickly, which improves both comprehension and speaking fluency. This skill is especially useful for bilinguals or learners who often translate in their heads. Daily exposure reduces translation time and builds direct thinking in English. Another benefit is that daily practice improves listening accuracy for different English accents. Many learners struggle with accents they haven't heard before, but by listening every day to a variety of speakers, news anchors, vloggers, podcasts, you train your ears to understand English in multiple contexts. This ability is essential for real-world communication because English is spoken differently in different countries and regions. Daily reading also strengthens grammar naturally. When you read often, you begin to see how sentences are structured, how tenses are used, and how words are combined. You don't need to memorize rules explicitly. The brain absorbs patterns subconsciously, and you start producing sentences correctly without thinking about the rules. Reading short texts daily, like news articles, blogs, or stories, reinforces grammar in a natural way. Let's not forget pronunciation. Practicing English daily, even for a few minutes, helps your mouth get used to forming English sounds. You can practice by repeating phrases from podcasts, shadowing speakers, or reading aloud. Regular repetition improves clarity and confidence. Over time, you'll notice that your accent becomes more understandable and you can speak more smoothly and naturally. Daily practice also helps with writing fluency. When you write every day, your brain becomes more comfortable organizing ideas and using words correctly. You might start with short sentences, then gradually write longer paragraphs. This gradual growth makes writing easier and more enjoyable. Writing daily also strengthens your ability to plan what you want to say when speaking, because both skills are connected. Consistency also builds a mental connection with English culture. Daily exposure to media, conversations, or reading helps you understand cultural references, expressions, and humor. This cultural understanding makes conversations more natural and engaging because language is not just about words, it's about meaning and context. Daily practice makes these connections stronger and more intuitive. Another strategy is to review and recycle material you've learned before. For example, if you listened to a podcast last week, listen again and try to summarize it in your own words. If you read a story, reread it and focus on understanding deeper meanings. This recycling keeps your knowledge active and helps transfer information from short-term to long-term memory. Over time, repeated exposure solidifies vocabulary, phrases, and grammar naturally. Daily English practice also encourages curiosity. When you practice every day, you begin to notice gaps in your knowledge. Maybe there's a word you don't understand, or a phrase you want to use but aren't sure about. This curiosity motivates you to look things up, ask questions, and explore more content. Curiosity makes learning fun and personal, keeping you engaged over the long term. Even on days when you feel tired or busy, small efforts count. Listening to a 5-minute podcast, reading one paragraph, or speaking for a few sentences still contributes to your progress. The key is never to skip days in a row. Even minimal daily exposure reinforces connections in your brain, keeps vocabulary active, and prevents forgetting. Over months, these small efforts compound into big improvement. Another powerful method is self-assessment. After a few weeks of daily practice, take a moment to reflect. Record yourself speaking, try reading a new text, or watch a video without subtitles. You'll notice improvements you might not see day to day. This self-assessment shows you the results of your consistent practice and motivates you to continue. It also helps you identify areas that need more focus, so your practice becomes more effective. Daily English practice also improves comprehension speed. When your brain hears English every day, it processes words faster and connects meaning more quickly. This improvement is essential for real-life conversations, where people speak naturally and often quickly. Daily practice trains you to keep up with these conversations, so you can respond immediately without hesitation or translation. And when you practice every day, you also develop patience and resilience. Learning a language is a long-term journey. There are days when it feels easy and days when it feels hard. Daily practice trains you to continue even when progress seems slow. You learn that persistence matters more than intensity. Small, consistent steps over time lead to lasting results. Another advantage of daily practice is that it encourages creativity. When you engage with English daily, you start experimenting with words, phrases, and sentences. You try new ways to express ideas, tell stories, or explain your thoughts. This creativity builds fluency because you're not just repeating memorized sentences. You're actively using English to communicate in different ways. As you continue practicing English every day, you start noticing subtle improvements that are easy to overlook if you only study occasionally. For example, you might find that you can understand a short video without subtitles, recognize new words in conversation more quickly, or feel more comfortable speaking in a group. These small improvements are the real signs of progress, and they are cumulative. Every day you practice, even for a short time, adds another layer of fluency and confidence. The key is to recognize and celebrate these small wins because they reinforce your motivation and remind you why daily practice matters. Daily practice also helps you internalize vocabulary. When you encounter new words repeatedly, your brain begins to store them as automatic responses instead of something you need to think about. For instance, if you hear the word opportunity in a podcast today and read it in an article tomorrow, your brain starts connecting its meaning, pronunciation, and usage. A few weeks of this kind of exposure can turn a previously unfamiliar word into one that comes naturally in conversation. This is far more effective than memorizing lists of words, because repetition in context helps you understand how the word is actually used in real life. Another aspect of daily practice is the development of listening comprehension under real-world conditions. At the beginning, you might need subtitles, slower speech, or repetition to understand fully. But as you listen every day, your brain adapts to natural speech patterns, faster tempos, and different accents. Over time, you'll find yourself catching words and phrases in movies, podcasts, or conversations without extra effort. This adaptability is crucial for real-life communication, where English is not simplified or tailored for learners. Daily listening gradually rewires your brain to understand English as it is spoken naturally. Speaking practice benefits even more from daily engagement. Many learners hesitate to speak because they fear mistakes, but speaking every day, even alone, removes this fear. Describe your day in English, express opinions about a show or book, or narrate your actions while cooking or walking. Each sentence you speak builds muscle memory for language production. Over time, you'll speak more fluidly, with fewer pauses and more confidence. You'll notice that it becomes easier to construct sentences on the spot, rather than searching for words or translating from your native language. Reading every day also strengthens your understanding of grammar and context. When you read articles, short stories, or blog posts in English, your brain sees correct sentence structures and natural word usage repeatedly. You absorb grammar patterns passively, without the need for formal drills. Over time, your writing and speaking improve automatically because your brain starts producing sentences that mirror what you've read. Reading daily also exposes you to varied vocabulary, idiomatic expressions, and sentence structures that are used in real life, helping you understand and use language naturally. Daily writing is equally important. It allows you to organize your thoughts, experiment with new words, and reinforce grammar rules. You can keep a simple journal where you write about your day, or try more creative exercises like describing a favorite scene from a movie, summarizing a podcast episode, or giving your opinion on a news article. Writing consistently helps you think in English, not just translate from your native language, which is a critical step toward fluency. Even a few sentences every day build long-term skills and confidence. Another advantage of practicing daily is that it reduces the time it takes to recall vocabulary. Words and phrases you use frequently become automatic. When someone asks a question in English, your response comes naturally because your brain is trained to process language efficiently. You'll notice a decrease in hesitation and an increase in fluidity. This automaticity is what separates learners who have memorized English from those who truly use it as a living language. Daily practice is the key to achieving that automatic, instinctive use of English. Consistency also helps build strong habits that make learning less stressful. Once English becomes part of your daily routine, it stops feeling like a chore. You start associating English with normal activities, listening while commuting, reading during a break, speaking while cooking, and this makes it easier to maintain practice over the long term. Habits eliminate the need for constant motivation because the action becomes almost automatic. Even on days when you're tired or busy, your routine ensures that you're still exposed to English. Social practice is another powerful element of daily exposure. Interacting with other learners or native speakers allows you to apply what you've been practicing in a real context. Short conversations, voice messages, and online chat groups all count as practice. When you engage socially, you develop listening skills, speaking confidence, and cultural understanding simultaneously. Real conversations provide feedback that helps you identify mistakes, correct them, and learn more effectively than studying alone. Daily practice also strengthens your ability to think in English. Initially, learners often translate from their native language, which slows down communication. But when you practice every day, you begin forming sentences and ideas directly in English. For instance, you might think, "I want to try that new recipe," instead of translating word by word. This shift from translation to direct thinking is a major step toward fluency. It allows you to respond quickly, understand more naturally, and speak with confidence. Another key benefit is improved comprehension of idiomatic expressions and natural phrases. English speakers use many phrases that don't make literal sense, such as break the ice or hit the books. Daily exposure helps you learn these expressions in context, making it easier to understand native speakers and participate in conversations. You'll start recognizing these phrases in podcasts, movies, or casual discussions, and eventually you'll be able to use them yourself naturally. Daily practice also strengthens memory retention. Repeated exposure to words, phrases, and grammar rules helps transfer knowledge from short-term to long-term memory. For example, hearing the word opportunity in a podcast, reading it in an article, and using it in a sentence over several days ensures it becomes part of your active vocabulary. This consistent reinforcement makes it easier to recall information quickly and accurately when speaking or writing. Moreover, daily practice increases your adaptability in English. When you encounter new words, phrases, or accents regularly, your brain becomes flexible. You learn to understand unfamiliar situations, adjust to different speakers, and interpret meaning from context. This adaptability is crucial because English is spoken differently around the world. Daily exposure prepares you to handle diverse communication styles and makes real-life conversations much smoother. Engaging in different types of English content is another effective approach. You can listen to podcasts, watch videos, read blogs, play language games, or participate in discussions. Each type of activity exercises different skills. For example, listening to a podcast improves comprehension and pronunciation. Reading blogs strengthens vocabulary and grammar, and chatting online develops spontaneous speaking skills. Mixing activities keeps learning fresh, enjoyable, and comprehensive. Tracking your progress is another important strategy. Keep a simple journal or use an app to record what you practiced each day. Writing down new words, phrases, and topics ensures you revisit them later. Reviewing progress every week or month highlights improvement and reinforces motivation. Seeing your own growth reminds you that consistent effort pays off, even if progress feels slow day by day. Daily practice also encourages self-reflection. By reflecting on what you learned, you identify your strengths and weaknesses. You might notice that listening is improving faster than speaking, or that certain vocabulary still feels difficult. Reflection helps you adjust your daily routine to focus on areas that need more attention, making your practice more efficient and targeted. Practicing daily develops patience and perseverance. Language learning is a marathon, not a sprint. There will be days when you feel frustrated, when progress seems slow, or when understanding feels difficult. Daily practice trains you to keep going despite these challenges. It builds resilience, teaching you that consistent effort over time is what leads to fluency. Engaging emotionally with English enhances daily practice. Content that evokes emotion, like stories, movies, or songs, helps memory retention and makes learning more enjoyable. You're more likely to remember phrases, pronunciation, and vocabulary when you connect them with feelings. Emotional engagement also makes practice feel less like work and more like an enjoyable part of life. Daily exposure to English strengthens cultural understanding as well. Language is not just words. It's a reflection of culture, values, and communication styles. Listening to native speakers, reading articles, or watching shows provides insight into how English is used socially. This understanding improves your ability to communicate naturally and respond appropriately in real conversations. Mixing old and new material keeps learning effective. Reviewing previously learned words, phrases, and grammar reinforces memory and ensures knowledge becomes permanent. Combining review with new content prevents forgetting and helps you build a strong, balanced foundation in English. For example, you might revisit a podcast episode from last month and summarize it using new vocabulary you learned this week. This reinforces both old and new learning simultaneously. Daily practice encourages creativity in using language. You can experiment with sentence structures, try expressing ideas in different ways, or describe situations using new words. This flexibility makes your English more dynamic and expressive. Creative practice also boosts confidence because you realize that language is a tool you can manipulate, not a set of rigid rules. Another benefit of daily English practice is improved fluency under pressure. Regular exposure helps you think and respond quickly. For instance, in a conversation, you won't have to pause for long to translate or search for words. Your brain has already developed the neural pathways needed for fast, automatic responses. This ability is essential for real-life communication, whether in social situations, work, or travel. Exposure to English every day also enhances cultural understanding. Language is closely tied to culture, and daily engagement with native content exposes you to social norms, humor, and expressions. Watching a short video, reading an article, or listening to a conversation provides insight into how English is used in context. This understanding makes your communication more natural and helps you avoid misunderstandings. Daily practice helps you retain grammar naturally. Instead of memorizing rules, repeated exposure allows you to internalize sentence structures. For example, seeing and hearing sentences like, "I have been working all day" multiple times teaches you the present perfect continuous tense naturally. You start using correct forms instinctively without thinking about the rule, which is the hallmark of fluency. Consistency also improves your ability to use phrasal verbs. These are often challenging for learners because their meanings are not literal. Daily exposure through listening, reading, and speaking helps you understand and use phrasal. Verbs like give up, look after, or run into Repeated exposure in context reinforces understanding and ensures you can use these expressions correctly and confidently. Another powerful aspect of daily practice is the development of listening and speaking synergy. Listening improves your understanding, while speaking allows you to produce language. Practicing both every day strengthens this connection. For example, after listening to a podcast, you can summarize it aloud. This reinforces comprehension, vocabulary, and sentence structure simultaneously, creating a complete learning cycle. Daily practice also enhances your cognitive flexibility. Switching between tasks in English, like listening, reading, and speaking, trains your brain to process language efficiently. This flexibility helps in conversations where topics change quickly and you need to respond spontaneously. It also improves problem-solving skills in English, such as figuring out the meaning of an unknown word or responding to an unexpected question. Engaging daily with English also reduces anxiety about speaking. The more often you use English, the more comfortable you become with making mistakes and experimenting with language. You begin to see mistakes as part of the learning process rather than failures. This mindset allows you to take risks, try new words or expressions, and participate in conversations with confidence. Daily practice strengthens your memory for idiomatic expressions and collocations. Phrases like make a decision, take a break, or keep in mind become natural through repeated exposure. Recognizing and using these phrases correctly makes your English sound fluent and native-like. You also understand subtleties of meaning and context, which are essential for advanced communication. Writing daily contributes to mental organization in English. When you write sentences, paragraphs, or short essays every day, you practice structuring thoughts logically. This skill transfers to speaking, helping you express ideas clearly and coherently in conversation. Writing also reinforces vocabulary and grammar, learned through reading and listening, creating a strong, interconnected foundation. Daily practice improves comprehension speed. When you engage with English regularly, your brain processes words, sentences, and ideas faster. This skill is crucial in conversations, where you need to understand meaning in real time. Regular exposure ensures that you can follow discussions, respond promptly, and participate actively without hesitation. Another advantage is the development of self-discipline. Practicing English every day, even in small increments, trains you to be consistent and committed. This discipline carries over to other areas of life, fostering a mindset of persistence and growth. The habit of daily practice teaches you that small, consistent actions lead to meaningful results over time. Daily practice also enhances your ability to express complex ideas. By using English every day, you gradually expand your range of vocabulary and sentence structures. You can discuss topics like plans, opinions, experiences, and hypothetical situations with greater ease. Repeated exposure ensures that you can convey meaning accurately, fluently, and naturally, without translating from your native language. Listening and reading daily exposes you to varied sentence lengths and structures. You encounter short, simple sentences as well as long, complex ones. This variety trains your brain to understand different types of English and prepares you for real-life communication, where sentence lengths and styles vary. Over time, your comprehension improves for both casual conversation and more formal contexts. Daily practice also strengthens your ability to infer meaning from tone and context. You start recognizing sarcasm, humor, and emotional nuance in spoken and written English. Understanding these subtleties is essential for natural communication and helps you respond appropriately in different situations. Another benefit of daily practice is the gradual development of fluency in expressing opinions. When you think, write, and speak daily, You build confidence in sharing ideas. You learn how to structure arguments, support opinions, and participate in discussions. This skill is especially important for social, academic, and professional communication. Daily English exposure also improves spelling and writing accuracy. Frequent writing and reading reinforce correct spelling, punctuation, and sentence structure. Over time, writing becomes faster, more accurate, and more natural. You begin to produce English effortlessly, which enhances confidence in both written and spoken communication. Daily practice builds mental resilience. Learning a language can be challenging, but consistent daily engagement teaches you to persevere through difficulties. You learn to cope with frustration, confusion, and mistakes while maintaining progress. This resilience is valuable not only in language learning, but in broader life challenges. Listening every day also trains your brain to pick up subtle differences in pronunciation and word stress. For instance, hearing record as a noun versus a verb helps you distinguish meaning based on context and stress. These nuances are easier to grasp with regular exposure, improving both comprehension and your own pronunciation. Daily reading, listening, writing, and speaking also create a feedback loop. What you hear informs what you speak, what you read influences your writing, and what you write reinforces your speaking. This interconnected practice ensures that all language skills develop together, creating balanced fluency. Daily practice enhances your ability to learn independently. By establishing a routine and seeking resources, you develop strategies to find and use materials effectively. This skill empowers you to continue learning beyond structured lessons, making progress even without a teacher present. Immersion through daily practice also strengthens contextual understanding. You begin to recognize when certain words or phrases are appropriate and when they are not. For example, learning the difference between "Can I borrow your pen?" and "May I borrow your pen?" in terms of formality helps you communicate appropriately in different social contexts. Daily English practice also strengthens your listening comprehension in ways that can't be achieved through occasional study. When you listen to English every day, your brain starts to pick up on patterns, rhythm, and pronunciation that are typical of native speakers. For example, you might notice that in casual conversation, people often link words together, shorten phrases, or drop certain sounds. Over time, your brain adapts, and these patterns begin to feel natural. You start to recognize words quickly, even when they are spoken fast or in accents you haven't heard before. This skill is essential for real-life communication because English in movies, podcasts, or casual conversations is rarely spoken in slow, clear sentences. Another important advantage of daily practice is the improvement of speaking fluency. The more often you speak or even practice speaking aloud, the more comfortable you become with producing sentences in real time. Many learners struggle because they think too much about grammar or translation in their head. Daily exposure and speaking exercises reduce this mental load. You might start by narrating your daily routine, describing objects around you, or commenting on a podcast you listen to. At first, it may feel simple or awkward, but over time, your speech becomes smoother, your vocabulary more automatic, and your confidence grows. Daily practice also reinforces vocabulary retention. Seeing or hearing words repeatedly helps transfer them into long-term memory. For instance, if you encounter the word essential in a podcast today and see it in an article tomorrow, your brain starts to connect its meaning, pronunciation, and context. Repeated exposure makes it easier to recall and use in conversation. Moreover, when you try to use these words in your writing or speech, your understanding deepens further. Vocabulary learned in isolation fades quickly, but words used consistently every day stay active in your language repertoire. Writing every day has unique benefits as well. When you write, you practice organizing your thoughts, constructing sentences, and using new vocabulary. Even a short paragraph about your day, a short story, or your opinion on a news article can be incredibly effective. Writing daily also strengthens your ability to think in English rather than translating from your native language. Over weeks and months, this habit improves both writing and speaking because your brain starts forming sentences naturally and automatically.